So Lamar Jackson, as predicted, as reported on this show, the Ravens offered him a non-exclusive franchise tag, meaning put your game out to the market. We can match any offer, but right now we got a little disagreement. It's called negotiations, folks. You don't always get what you want. I know mom and dad told you were the best at what you did in the world, but in all these things, I've been doing it forever. I have friends who negotiate. They're called negotiations. There's first offers, second offers, back and forth, tug of war. Stuff doesn't always work out. So this is bumpy for Lamar Jackson. What people are bummed out about, and they're freaking out about, is this is collusion, because 4 or 5 GMs and teams immediately said, 2-3 hours later, we don't want Lamar Jackson. People can come to the same conclusion, and it's not collusion. There's no collusion on the voice if you have a lousy singing voice. Everybody can agree very quickly you're a hack. Right? You don't have to be in a text chain to know the Deshaun Watson contract was egregiously amoral and awful. Nobody had to collude. There was a league conclusion that the desperate Cleveland Browns overpaid and poorly paid for a player with stuff off the field that was gross. You don't need to call your other buddies to figure it out. 2 years into the league, everybody figured out Baker Mayfield was a reach at number 1. Daniel Jones was a reach at number 6. Did you have to have a meeting for that? You can have a conclusion without collusion. And here's what hurts. Lamar Jackson's good, but he's collateral damage for that awful contract that everybody in the league immediately knew was outrageous. In fact, Steve Bisciotti, one of the better owners in the league, said about the contract. He said at the time, I don't know that he should have been the first guy to get a fully guaranteed contract. Bisciotti is saying somebody's eventually going to get it. It shouldn't have been that guy. He said, to me, that's something that is groundbreaking. It'll make negotiations harder for others. He said this a year ago. He said, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to play that game. That's what I've been saying. If the Mariners sign Robinson Cano to a 10-year deal, why do well-run teams? Because the desperate Cleveland Browns sign a contract, why do the well-run Ravens have to do something? I still think I would sign Lamar Jackson. Everybody in the media always does this. Collusion. We all know in this league there are underrated players and overrated players. We watch the games. There's data everywhere. Owners, GMs. You know what this was? Teams summarily coming out and saying pass on Lamar Jackson. What it was general managers. And general managers talk about a million things, but all of them saying, no, this can't be the new reality for a quarterback in Lamar Jackson that's not available. In the last 22 games, Lamar Jackson has missed 40% of them. I can't guarantee you a contract if you're not guaranteed to play. Now Patrick Mahomes, that's a guaranteed contract potentially. That's a guy I'd guarantee. Joe Burrow. And I mean, it's a tiny, tiny list. Larry Fitzgerald had the ability, the professionalism, the availability. Like Larry Fitzgerald, a guy I would have felt comfortable for years given a guaranteed contract. A leader, available, great. The money won't go to his head. Like, that's a guy you give a lot of money to. But you got to be available. If you want guarantees to play, you got to be able to play. And in my life, everybody always jumps on collusion. Conclusions can be reached without collusion. Everybody knew that Deshaun Watson contract was outrageous. Why should the Cleveland Browns dictate the market? They've never dictated anything in this league. They're the worst run team in their own division. Forget the league. There's 4 teams. They're not as well run as Pittsburgh. They're not as well run as Baltimore. And frankly, in the last couple of years, they're not as well run as Cincinnati. The other thing, some of this is on Lamar. He uses his mom as an agent. Big-time agents protect you. Teams would be much less willing to go out and criticize you if you had a big-time agent. Because agents, I know I've had 4. They act as a shield. They act as a vest. They act as protection. And the last thing a team or a GM wants to do is rip a player with a big-time agent because that agent has other players that GM and team may need. But Lamar made a decision not to hire a big-time agent. He hired his mom. So what if you offend Lamar and his mom? They got one client. The other thing is, Agents give you unemotional advice. Parents don't. I can't even imagine having one of my parents as an agent. And so, listen, I feel bad about this because Lamar Jackson, I would sign him. I think he's a quarterback, wins 75% of his games. But the idea that the Cleveland Browns, a desperate franchise, I mean, they're always desperate, should be dictating terms for everybody else, I don't buy it. GMs know what wins in this league. Getting a discount at quarterback, even if the quarterback's good. Mahomes right now, the Chiefs got a little bit of a discount on him. They did. They got a little bit of a discount. You know who didn't? The Titans on Ryan Tannehill. And the Titans now are bailing on players left and right. So, yeah, it's weird. Everybody rushes out. But I think general managers in this league are saying, if we have to start guaranteeing contracts to players, this is going to make our job increasingly more difficult. And the Cleveland Browns should never dictate terms in this league on anything. All right, so the New York Giants contract with Daniel Jones is brutal. So it's a $160 million 4-year deal. What it basically is, I mean, if you look at the contract, it's like a 2-year, $82 million deal. It's really punitive for 2 years. Here's the problem. He's a below-average quarterback. He is. They have a far below-average offensive roster that needs help now. But at an $82 million deal over the next 2 years, there's going to be limitations now on what the Giants can do offensively. Good luck nailing 5 draft picks on the offensive side of the ball. It's just not a recipe for Super Bowls, signing a below-average to average quarterback to a massive elite contract. Now, people can say, what about Dak? Dak's better than Daniel Jones. Dak is top 10 all-time in completions. Dak Prescott early in his career was averaging about 23, 24 touchdowns a year. Now, he had a better offensive line, but numbers are numbers. Daniel Jones, listen to this. Daniel Jones last year had 15 touchdown passes. That is with Brian Daboll, an elite left tackle and a star running back. He had 15 touchdown passes. That's tied with Marcus Mariota. That's fewer than Andy Dalton. That's fewer than Davis Mills and Justin Fields. So Davis Mills, with that mess in Houston, had more touchdown passes? Patrick Mahomes, with a rebuilt receiving core with 3 separate cast-off players and a rookie, had 15 touchdown passes by week 5 in a tougher division, arguably. Here's what I think happened. The Mara family sees some Eli Manning with Daniel Jones. I think almost look alike. You know, big Southern kid, very gracious, hardworking, team first. And they, took a while to get it going. And they probably see a little bit of Eli Manning. Also, the Jets have chaos at quarterback. The Giants, over the last 4 or 5 years, are not very good, right? They've been take away this past year. So I think what happened to the New York Giants, the Mara family really see some Eli here. And they don't want chaos at the position. And they just got to the playoffs. And they're like, okay, it's not this, but at least it's not chaos. We don't want to be the Jets. We don't want to be them. We don't want to be the bottom 7 teams in the league. So we got the coach we like, the GM we like, the defense we like. Let's just stick with this guy and overpay him for a few years and try to hit some draft picks. But I think what happened with the New York Giants, it's a blue blood franchise, and over the last several years, they've averaged about 4 or 5 wins. So this year, they have a little bit of a success, and they reach, and they overreact to a little bit of success because the Giants' standards over the last 4 or 5 years before this one, what were they doing? They were awful. They were struggling to win 5 and 6 games. So the standards get lower. They have a little success, and they're like, let's sign him. You can't pay Daniel Jones this and win a Super Bowl. And I will say, it's not a 6-year deal. It's a ton of money for 2 years. But right now, in an offensive leaning and pivoting league, they got a bad offense outside of left tackle and running back. They got to fix tight end. They got to fix wide receiver. They got to fix the remainder of their offensive line. And now they're limited. You can draft players and be good, but Seattle did this. Seattle hit on 5 draft picks. Those draft picks were very, very good until about Thanksgiving, and then Seattle wasn't quite as good. Why? because they were college kids 1 year earlier, and they get worn down like NBA rookies do later in seasons. They're just not used to the grind and the physicality of a long NFL season. College season can be 12, 13 games. NFL season can be 17 or 18 against much bigger, stronger guys. So Seattle's rookies did not play as well late as they did early. So even if the Giants hit a bunch of home runs in the draft and they're rookies, the chances are they could be good and spry and young and dynamic early. They wouldn't be late. And the Giants have always been a franchise about winning late, not September. So you've got a very, very average quarterback who gives you about 15 touchdown passes a year. I think last year in 18 games, he had 17 touchdown passes. That's less than a touchdown a game. The good ones in this league average 2 to 2.5 a game. That's the difference. So I think the fingerprints of the ownership is all over Daniel Jones. I think they're reaching in the past. Listen, we've seen this with a lot of franchises. They romanticize the past. They reach into the past. They visualize the past. And I think with Daniel, you do see a much more athletic version, but you see a little bit of Eli Manning, the Southern kid that works hard, doesn't get in the news, always says the right stuff. Everybody seems to like him. And it's like, well, we got to the playoffs. It took Eli about 3 or 4 years to pop. Boom. And I think they're going to ask Brian Daboll to squeeze even more juice out of Daniel Jones, and I don't think there's a lot left. I think this is what it is. Maybe he gets up to 21, 22 touchdown passes with a better receiving core and better protection, but that's where we stand today.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.